back to Nostalgia. Dave here in our podcast, What's Going on in Pop Culture right now. We got a quick one here before the holidays. 4 key things to discuss once again. On the movie front, Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and Mufasa the Lion King, and A24's Babygirl starring Nicole Kidman and Harris Dickinson. And of course on TV, we have the conclusion of Dune Prophecy Season 1 on HBO. Despite all that, of course, Best of 2024 season is in full effect, so make sure you come back throughout the end of the year for my best music, best movies, and best TV of 2024. And yeah, see the links below, youtube.com/nostalgiapod, linktree.com/nostalgiapod. Let me know it's good, and let's get into it. What's up, welcome back to Nostalgia. Dave here with the review of Dune Prophecy, Season 1 on HBO, concluding its 6-episode run after long run to the screen, a troubled development. The year of Dune has ended following the great success of Dune Part 2, and I would say the pretty solid success of Dune Prophecy on TV. Dune Prophecy doesn't hold much of a candle to the greatness of Denis Villeneuve's films, but Dune Prophecy is pretty solid first season. I think it's a great foundation for the future of this series. We know it has been renewed. I thought the finale in particular was quite strong, quite compelling. There's some fun threads that we can continue to explore. I think story-wise, this show is still finding its footing. It wasn't always the most gripping thing I ever saw. And again, it's a tough act to follow comparing to the Paul Atreides story. I think this show really began to find its groove. Thankfully, the production design, the sound design, the costume design is all very strong. I enjoyed the acting on the show, although I would not mind if some more high-profile actors were cast for season 2, just to kind of spice it up a little bit. I mean, it really does stand out that you have a who's who of in-man talent in the Dune films. And then on Dune Prophecy, we have, no offense to them, but Emily Watson, the guy who plays Desmond Hart from Vikings. It's not the Jessica Barden who I like, but these aren't really A-list people. Nevertheless, like I said, I think it's a successful show. And honestly, I think the fact that it wraps up in a pretty good way, all things considered, it should be considered a win given how troubled this show was in the development process. In terms of what happened, again, I think the show was kind of up and down throughout its run. The best stuff, the most interesting stuff, the most Dune-y stuff here has to be everything with Sister Leela, and then how she gets possessed by Rakella, and of course how we learn what Valia did to Rakella, making her commit suicide. Everything regarding that and the secrets of the sisterhood and it's how it got to where it's gotten to recently and all that internal infighting, to me that's the most compelling stuff in season 1. In particular, the episode where Leela successfully goes back and communes with the ancestors and meets Rakella, and they're all shrouded in cloaks and very ghostly wraith like. That's definitely the best scene on the season. That was excellent. That would have fit right at home in the Dune movies. That was crazy. Other than that, I think we're talking more about just certain sequences. I think the flashback scene where Tula has all the Atreides killed in the forest. That was pretty good. A lot of stuff with Desmond Hart I think was pretty cool, especially when the mystery of his great power was still unexplained. When he's fucking shit up, it was pretty cool. I was probably most disappointed in Princess Inez just because I thought the performance was very compelling in the first episode. I was intrigued by the character, and the character is largely sidelined to the very end of the season in the finale. And, she's set up to be a much bigger character in season 2, but I was kind of looking for more. Sister Theodosia, the shapeshifter, pretending to be Inez on Secula Segundo, the palace planet. I think that is an interesting thread to continue in season 2. Mark Strong as the Emperor, now since left us at the end of season 1. Honestly, not his best work. I'm a fan of his. I think he's a good actor. He's pretty experienced in IP fare, but he seemed kind of flat, kind of stiff on this show. I'm not sure why. In terms of performances, I enjoyed Barbara Martin as Sister Avila. I think she was a fun foil at times to Valia and Tula during the scenes, at the Sisterhood of Wallach 9. I love seeing Mark Addy again on an IP show as the elder Harkonnen patriarch, and I like the scene where Valia kills him by holding back his respirator. Nice to see him. Also from Game of Thrones, of course, nice to see Archie Barnes again in a small role on this show. He, of course, was Oscar Tully on House of the Dragon Season 2, a rising talent for sure. And then, yeah, I think in terms of those threads, I mean, obviously we end on Arrakis at the end of this finale. We don't spend time on Arrakis in this first season, which I think is fine. It's nice to see other parts of the Dune world and kind of expand that. It's such a big sandbox that's largely untapped in live action, as we know. But now we're back to Arrakis. We know Michaela is already there. We know Constantine was sent there by the Emperor a few episodes back. I think there's a lot of potential here. We know Inez will have more to do. Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to the next season. It's not going to come out till 2026. You would have to imagine. That being said, seems pretty safe that it will be coming out before Dune Messiah, the film from Denis Villeneuve, comes out, just because Denis still writing that movie. I mean, even if that gets into production at the end of next year, which seems a bit ambitious, the show is going to be ahead of it in the pipeline. So we'll be getting this show in 26, I'd imagine, on HBO, and I'm looking forward to it. And I think the development process seemingly would probably be a bit more ironed out with this season, and hopefully the show can kind of fall into a bit of a rhythm, which would be nice. Looking forward to spending more time in the Dune world. Let me know, what you think of Dune Prophecy? What was your favorite aspect of the show? What are you looking forward to seeing in season 2? Let me know. And for more TV reviews, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. What's up, Womack Nostalgia? Dave here with a review of Sonic the Hedgehog 3, the third live-action Sonic film from Paramount. This is, of course, the follow-up to the first two Sonic films that were quite successful in their own regard. They were not, absolute behemoths at the box office, but they were solid blockbusters. But perhaps even more importantly, the Sonic films have found a home on Paramount Plus. We see from the streaming data that these films get watched a lot as big catalog content because kids love Sonic. And honestly, it's kind of fascinating to me how popular Sonic has become with new kids who don't even have much of an affinity for the Sonic games. I think there's a lot of people that are fans of Sonic, and a lot of kids that went to see Sonic today that don't even really know much about Sonic as a video game property at all, which is kind of funny to think about all the older fans that are going to see these movies that, of course, come to Sonic from a very different, perspective. And this Sonic franchise has already been blown out a bit. There was the Knuckles Paramount Plus spin-off series earlier this year, of course, starring Idris Elba in the voice role for Knuckles. And Sonic the Hedgehog 3, of course, features the long-awaited debut of Shadow, one of the key figures in the Sonic game series and the Sonic animated shows and whatnot, the chief antagonist and foil to the lead protagonist of Sonic, of course. And the question remains, is Sonic the Hedgehog 3 any good? The best aspect of Sonic 3 is the continued manic performance of Jim Carrey as Dr. Robotnik, who does return despite some illusion that his character might have been killed off in the previous film. And to make it even more fun, Carrey gets to play a dual role this time around as he also plays Robotnik's grandfather. The fourth wall breaking and the meta commentary from Carrey in this film is the most interesting aspect of the Sonic films to, I think, the average adult viewer. If you're not a big fan of Sonic the property, Sonic the franchise, whether that be the games, previous shows, the previous movies, there's not a lot here for you, because ultimately Sonic the Hedgehog 3, like its two predecessors, is a kid's movie. The plot is dumb, the script is dumb, it's expository, it's predictable, it's very thin with motivation wise. You're really here for the spectacle of watching these famous characters do their thing on the big screen. And if that's not for you, then there's really not much here to be interested in. The introduction of Shadow presented at least an interesting opportunity to add a little bit more, sauce to this film franchise, I guess you could say. And Keanu Reeves does the voice work, I think, pretty good. He does the brooding effectively, but ultimately I just think it's kind of undercooked. And of course, the turn from villain to more of an anti-hero is very telegraphed in the film. Yeah, ultimately I don't have like a whole lot to say because there's just no depth really to speak on with the film. I mean, it was interesting. I actually didn't know she was in the movie to see Kristen Ritter show up as a government figure. Not the best performance from her, but I'm happy to see her just because I haven't seen her much lately. But yeah, I just think if you're not a fanboy, if you're not a fan of this franchise, and you're not a young child or you're not an adolescent boy, there's just not a lot here for you. And I think that's okay. Sometimes stuff can be geared towards kids and also not appealing to adults. Not everything has to be for quadrant. And I think that ultimately bears out in the performance of these movies. These movies are successful films, but they're not the highest grossing films of the year. Sonic the Hedgehog 2 grossed $400 million worldwide. That's a successful entry, especially because these movies are not, extremely well high budgeted or anything like that. That's a strong enough box office to justify continuing the franchise. Of course, it's an upward trajectory, but these are not billion-dollar movies. These are not behemoths, and that's okay. These movies are I think fine and about as good as they could possibly be. Ultimately, there's not a lot of depth with Sonic. There never has been, and that's fine. Of course, the post-credit scenes in this film tease the inclusion of additional characters that people probably could have predicted coming, just like Tails being teased before and Shadow being teased before. Now we're getting teases, actually seeing them, Amy Rose and Metal Sonic. Again, none of this is that surprising. They're going to keep these things going. There's talk of a Shadow spin-off, which I think makes a lot of sense. But yeah, it's not really a franchise for me. I am curious to see exactly how strong the box office performs in the United States with the holiday box office. Of course, we know the box office multiple can be very strong around the holidays, and Sonic looks to be the top dog here, of course. Wicked on the back nine, Moana 2 on the back nine. Sonic is going to be bigger than Mufasa the Lion King. So this is the top movie of the holiday season. And I'll be interested to see exactly how well that does, because this is not really a all ages film. This is going to be families with kids really only. So I'll be curious to see exactly what the ceiling on this movie is at the box office. But yeah, let me know, what did you think of Sonic the Hedgehog 3? Or did you find something more to be interested in it than I did? Let me know. And for more movie reviews, subscribe. And I'll see you next time. What's up, Womack Nostalgia? Dave here, the review of Mufasa the Lion King, the new prequel follow-up to 2019's The Lion King from Jon Favreau. Of course, The Lion King 2019 is currently the 10th highest grossing movie of all time, $1.6 billion at the box office. Part of the reason 2019 is like the ultimate box office year that'll never be replicated. And of course, the original Lion King from the early 90s, to its credit, if you do adjust for inflation, is in fact the 20th highest grossing movie of all time. So, not that anyone needs me to say it, but of course, the original Lion King is one of those signature Disney films. Whether it's the iconic Oscar-winning Hans Zimmer score, the original songs from Elton John, the inspiration from Hamlet, this is something that has stood the test of time. And the remake, the quote live action remake, the photorealistic animated remake from 2019, that success says a lot about the, legacy of the original. Now, did anyone even need the one from 2019? Of course not. We are all in agreement at that. That was also a film I did not like at all, to be honest. I thought Lion King 2019 was vastly inferior to the animated version for a lot of reasons. One, I thought the voice work was pretty poor from some high-profile people like Don Glover and Beyonce. I didn't really care for it. When you have iconic turns from James Earl Jones as Mufasa, Jeremy Irons as Scar, it's hard to have the same feeling when someone else does that. More than anything, though, I thought the photorealistic animation, using the real-looking animals, just did not work because those animals, real-life animals, cannot emote with human speech the way traditional animation can, and it just did not have the same feeling. And I think back to, of course, the iconic death of Mufasa scene, and that just did not land at all in 2019. So therefore, I'm coming into a spin-off about Mufasa with very low expectations. And if I think back to the animated days with Lion King, there was the Lion King 1.5, there was the Lion King Simba's Pride sequel. So but those were, of course, direct to video back when that was a thing. So getting a fully fledged, spin-off continuation of 2019's Lion King. This time we're going back, telling the origin story of Mufasa. I was not expecting a whole lot. Furthermore, I was just kind of frustrated that Barry Jenkins, of all people, was the one directing this. Of course, Barry Jenkins, the director of Moonlight, winner of Best Picture, the excellent If Beale Street Could Talk, the excellent Underground Railroad series at Amazon, and then he follows that up with Mufasa the Lion King. I will not begrudge Barry Jenkins from very clearly taking a nice bag from Disney, but let's be real, this is a one for them type decision, and I just know his next movie is going to be awesome. Despite a lot of reservations and a lack of anticipation, Mufasa the Lion King is about as good as it possibly could have been. This is the Mufasa origin story, and as a result, there's a lot of backfilling about how the world of the Lion King came to be. Some of that gets laid on a bit thick in the second half of the film. However, I think for what this was, it was pretty compelling, pretty interesting. I think a big part of this is the animation is a lot more improved. I think these photorealistic animals are a lot more emotive than they were in the 2019 Lion King. I think a big reason why this movie actually lands pretty successfully is the fact that it's a new story, the untold story of how Mufasa came to be the Mufasa we know from the Lion King. We're not directly comparing it to the iconic original Lion King the way we were in 2019. Of course, the ceiling is low on this movie. It's not super creative. There's nothing super surprising about it, but I did find myself pretty entertained for what this movie was. Of course, Mufasa the Lion King, it does a ton of the stuff that we often joke about prequel movies doing. Think of like Solo, a Star Wars story. How did Han Solo get his name? Not something anyone was really asking, right? On that line of thinking, we now know how Mufasa meets Sarabi, Rafiki, Zazu, Scar. We know how Rafiki gets his staff. We know how Mufasa comes to find Pride Rock and Rafiki finds his tree. All those things we weren't really thinking about and wondering about, but now we know the answer to. And I think a lot of that stuff doesn't really land all that well. To me, the most interesting stuff about this is really the first half of the movie, where you have Mufasa separated from his pride. And we come to understand that there's like all these like various almost like rogue prides, and it's not just this one happy kingdom the way it was presented in the original Lion King. Mufasa getting separated and coming across a fellow cub of his age from another tribe, Taka. The Mufasa Taka dynamic I really like, where Taka is the ascendant prince of this new pride that takes him in begrudgingly, but Mufasa clearly is like super goated. He's just a great hunter. He has a great sense of smell. He's super capable. He's a good fighter. All those things that Taka is not. And yes, is it a familiar proposition and premise for eventual conflict? Of course it is, but I did think it was pretty effective. Eventually, once they get on the run with the outsider characters who are amusingly all white furred lions, they're very easy to identify as the bad lions. Once we like get into like the chase and fleeing scene, I kind of like that. That's how they pick up Rafiki and Zazu, and they meet Sarabi, and there was kind of a lack of tension, I think, at that point, because I was like, oh, wait a minute, well, I know Sarabi is Simba's mom. Not that she's much of a character in the original Lion King, but I know the name. So therefore, when they present that Taka is in love with Sarabi, kind of out of nowhere, not really developed at all, I'm like, well, I know now how this is going to go, and that's going to be the wedge. And I think the villain turn, the betrayal from Taka to the rest of the group comes across as very abrupt. Like all of a sudden he's talking in a more sinister voice to the outsider leader. Like I just didn't see that coming. I don't think that was really paid off too well. But I think even before that happens, you have a sense that Taka is in fact Scar. And then we learn about how Scar gets a scar, as well as why him and Mufasa have fallen out. We actually learn that they're not actually blood brothers, more of adoptive brothers, and Mufasa lets him stick around at the end, and we kind of understand the dynamics of where the Lion King sets. Again, like none of this like needed to be answered. Like all those caveats go without saying. This is a brand management cash grab type movie. That's why it exists. However, I don't know. I did find it like pretty solid for a low ceiling effort like this. I think a big part of it is that I just had such low expectations because I really loathed the 2019 Lion King. The other thing that kind of surprised me is I thought the original songs in this, I mean, you don't hear them like in full. There's not a lot of huge singing montages. They're pretty quick, but I thought they were pretty solid songs. I like the arrangements with a lot of them, the instrumentation on a lot of these songs. Like, I thought they were memorable. I thought they were fun ensemble pieces when a lot of characters are singing. I think these are better songs than the Moana 2 song, which have been pretty universally dragged since Moana 2 came out a month ago. Are these songs as good as the Elton John songs from 30 plus years ago? Obviously not, but, they're solid. I think they fit the movie well. But yeah, let me know, what did you think of Mufasa the Lion King? Were you pleasantly surprised like me? Either way, let me know why. And for more movie reviews, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. What's up, Womack Nostalgia? Dave here with a review of Babygirl, the new erotic thriller film starring Nicole Kidman and Harris Dickinson from Dutch director Helena Rain. Of course, Rain gave us Bodies, Bodies, Bodies 2 years ago, a film I liked quite a bit. Now she's back with Babygirl, which is quite the splashy film. Debuted back in Venice earlier this year. Kidman won the Best Actress prize at Venice. Of course, Kidman is always working, always busy, always in high-profile shows and movies. But Harris Dickinson, this is also one of his biggest looks to date, of course, coming off a great turn in Iron Claw last year. He's a rapidly rising star for good reason, and this is a huge look for him. Babygirl is a great success because it's something we simply do not get in Hollywood anymore, and that is the erotic thriller film. Nicole Kidman and Harris Dickinson are really going for it in this film, especially when you consider the relatively conservative state of filmmaking when it comes to sex scenes these days. Thankfully, Babygirl is not as simple and straightforward as something like 50 Shades of Grey. This film is a lot thornier, it's a lot more multi-layered in terms of motivations and feelings, power dynamics. There's a lot of gray in this movie, and I think that's what really makes it start to crescendo once it blossoms out of its messy beginning. Harris Dickinson's star power is confirmed at this point. He has a very unique presence and is able to imbue that into this strange role quite well. And Kidman really goes for it and finds a way to put a spin on a character she's played often. Now, whether Kidman ultimately competes for Best Actress at the Oscars remains to be seen, because Best Actress is very stacked this year, but she's certainly contending, and I'm sure she'll get nominated at some awards bodies. We'll see what happens, but I mean, she's not going to win, obviously. That's going to be Mikey Madison, we know that much. Either way, it's certainly an awards-worthy performance. You know, on its surface, you might think, oh, Nicole Kidman playing a older, successful businesswoman, in this case, the CEO of a robotic automation company based in New York City. That's something she's done a lot recently, and you could be correct in that thought, but what's so great about her performance in Babygirl, her character Romy is, on one hand, this great leader, this bastion of female leadership, you know, quintessential girl boss, all those things. Family woman, you know, loving wife, a mother of two kids she loves. All that squeaky clean on the outside is hiding the fact that Romy has never had an orgasm when she's having sex with her husband, played by Antonio Banderas. Romy, despite being in an extreme position of power in her public life, professional life, is actually someone who wants to be told what to do and submissive in the bedroom. And it's just this, you know, kind of classic juxtaposition. And then something kind of rises inside of her when she comes across a new intern at her company, Samuel, played by Dickinson. Obviously, with erotic thriller films, there is often leaps of logic in terms of plotting and things like that. Nothing to be too concerned about. That being said, I did think the Samuel character was just a bit strange the way he was introduced. You know, because Samuel, he's obviously young enough to be an intern at a, you know, corporate company, so he's in his, you know, early 20s at the latest, and yet he has a really unprofessional demeanor at work, particularly when he's interacting with the literal CEO of the company he's at. I just found a lot of the, like, meet cute, for all intensive purposes, to be, like, super unrealistic, because I just, like, didn't think, like, a character like Romy would even let anything like that happen. But ultimately, I think what's really nice about Babygirl is this, obviously, this tryst, you know, Romy cheating on her husband with a much younger man who also happens to be one of her employees, and such as a strong abuse of power. All that's really messy, you know, like, it's not like Samuel is coming into this situation with a lot of confidence or, you know, clarity on what he's desiring, just so much as Romy clearly knows this is a bad idea and wrong, yet there's something inside of her that makes her want to keep going and keep seeing Samuel and leaning into his subtle advances. And I think that's probably the most realistic aspect about this, is just how messy and kind of convoluted their feelings are independently, and then when they're together, it's still quite messy. It's just a big web of what do we want, what should we do, and do those things, you know, line up. Now, of course, when I say Kidman's going for it, it's in a sense compared to the rest of her work recently and her peers' work. Like, most, you know, successful A-list actors, male or female, don't really do sex scenes these days. And, like, there's the whole discourse, you know, with, like, Gen Z film fans about whether they even want sex scenes in their movie, things like that. The truth of the matter is that film is a lot more chaste now than it used to be. We're long past the days of Basic Instinct. So when you get something like this with Babygirl, it's kind of graded on a curve. This is not actually like crazy BDSM or anything like that. This is not graphic, like full frontal all the time. It's not that. I mean, Romy does some like submissive acts. There's a thing with a plate of milk and various positions and things like that, but it's not as like crazy as perhaps it could have been. Maybe if this movie was made years in the past, this would have even more heat within it. And I think if there's something to criticize about Babygirl, that could perhaps be some of it, where while I certainly believe the emotional dynamic and how messy it is in this film, the actual like attraction I think is kind of like up and down and hard to like follow through with. It's a messy feeling on my part as a viewer, the same like clearly is for the characters you're watching. The movie also doesn't have like a super conclusive ending. It kind of ends on a whimper. The real ending almost is when Antonio Banderas confronts Samuel, and I think Banderas initially in the movie, you're like, oh, is this kind of a token spouse part? Usually a role reserved for women, but actually this could be the token husband for once. And he gets, a little bit of a role at times towards the back half of the movie. I think their confrontation leads to actually some of the funniest aspects of the film, all things considered. I also quite liked the, kind of like sub story within Babygirl, which is Romy's personal assistant, Esme, played by Australian actress Sophie Wilde. And Esme has like great admiration for Romy as a successful female CEO, a relatively rare thing in the business world, the corporate world. And she has these idealistic views about, women in the workplace and things like that. And then when she learns more about what is going on, there's an opportunistic possibility in it, and I did think that was pretty compelling. Ultimately, though, I think when you think of A24 films, you're going to think of stuff that's not easily put in a box, not something that you get really anywhere else, and I think Babygirl certainly fits that mold. We'll see about Kidman with a Best Actress nomination, I'm not sure. I don't think this movie will be in the Best Picture race, but I think it's a movie that will certainly develop a buzz. I hope this movie can succeed at the box office a little bit more than, say, like Saltburn did last year. Saltburn famously had a pretty middling box office before exploding on Amazon Prime Video. Hopefully Babygirl coming out in the holiday season, hopefully that helps buoy this movie. It's a bit of like, counter programming to Sonic the Hedgehog 3, Hopefully we can see that manifest, because this is a movie that I want to be successful just because movies like this just don't exist anymore, especially with A-list talent like this one has. But overall, I really liked Babygirl. I think once the movie gets to its second act, it starts to really sing and all its ideas really coalesce. But yeah, let me know, what do you think of Babygirl? What was your favorite aspect of this? Do you agree Harris Dickinson has next? Let me know what you want to see him in next. Nicole Kidman continues to be everywhere and always working, but still giving us interesting work and always a great performance. And for more movie reviews, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. All right, that's going to do for the pod this week, next week, and later this week as well. Best of 2024 content coming out, movies, TV, music. Make sure you get all that. Let me know what you're digging. And in terms of new stuff, I won't be covering any new releases again until the beginning of the year. I think top of mind will be Nosferatu from Robert Eggers, as well as Squid Game Season 2 on Netflix, and I'm sure some other stuff will be popping up before we know it in January. So make sure you subscribe, youtube.com/nostalgiapod, linktree.com/nostalgiapod. See links below. Get the Best of 2024 Spotify playlist while you can. Best of 2025 playlist on the way soon, of course. Get that best of content. Let me know what you're thinking, and I'll see you next year.